Sik. Aku kok ngetek. Sana. Sik. Iya, sebentar. Aku nggak bisa share kan.
The world keeps evolving. The times keep changing. The new generation of technology. The new generation of information. They bring the future before us. Institut Teknologi 10 November, a place where the spirit of heroism underlies the new generation to research and innovate in technology. The University of Heroes, ITS. ITS is one of the best science and technology universities in Indonesia, which was founded by Dr. Angga in 1957. In every step, ITS focuses in advancing education, research, management, and community service. As an incorporated public university, ITS has been able to manage autonomously the policy of academics, organizations, finance, students' affairs, human resources, facilities, operational, and infrastructure.
In the spirit of Indonesian heroes, during the battle in the 10th of November 1945, ITS always makes efforts to be the best in education, research, and community services, especially in the fields of industry and maritime. ITS also actively contributes to the nation development, and in the future, ITS will become an entrepreneurial university with world-class reputation.
ITS has many achievements. Both national and international achievements prove that ITS keeps growing and gives the best contribution to the nation of Indonesia. ITS is a place for new hopes to grow. An ideal environment for the new generation to flourish in 3 strategic locations within the industrial city of Surabaya. As a smart eco-campus, ITS maintains harmony between technological advances and the sustainability of the surrounding ecosystem. ITS has 7 faculties with prospective scientific fields, including Scientics, INSYS, Vocation, Creatis, Martech, Electics, Plan. ITS is a space for the new generation who are hungry for knowledge because it provides a wide range of references in both physical and digital form. ITS makes it easier for the new generation to access information by providing flexible classes. ITS keeps moving forward in facing future challenges by providing the best facilities for the new generation's activities. The facilities support both spiritual and physical needs. ITS also provides research facilities in the ITS Science Technopark, including ICT and robotics, automotive, maritime, and creative industries. Therefore, the excellent generations from ITS will emerge and make history. ITS is a space for the new generation to express themselves. ITS is a place where the new generation learns new things and finds their purpose. ITS has become a place where the new generations that carry the future will be born.
ITS is a campus of science and technology, which focuses on the research and innovation, presenting technology for prosperity.
With a spirit of heroism, ITS brings the future before us. ITS, the University of Heroes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining our event today, Researcher and Research Student Enrichment Program, or we usually call it R2SEP. Before we start our agenda today, I will read out the important information to all attendants. First, please fill in the attendance form on the provided link, which will be shared in the Zoom chat room by our committee. The link will be closed in 15 minutes from now. Second, please fill the feedback form, which will be shared in the Zoom chat room 15 minutes before the session ends, and it will be closed after 1 hour. Third, the attendance and feedback are compulsory for these purposes. Attendance is mandatory for the new ITS master and also doctoral student. Certificate of participation is eligible to those who have 80% of attendance or at least 7 meetings out of 8. It is for STEM for it, which is eligible for ITS undergraduate student. Participants who wish to ask questions during Q&A session, please send your question at the provided link in the Zoom chat room, or alternatively, you may raise your hand during the Q&A session to ask your question directly. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Researcher and Research Student Enrichment Program on today, Thursday, 17 February 2022. I'm Dewi from Postgraduate Office, and I will be your Master of Ceremony for this session. Now, before we start the session, allow me to inform you our today's agenda as follows. For the first agenda is the opening by the MC, continued by the welcoming speech by the representative of Directorate of Postgraduate Program and Academic Development, then followed by the introduction to the moderator and also the speaker. After that, we will get to the main agenda, which is the lecture session, then followed by the Q&A session, and it will be ended with the conclusion and closing. First of all, I would like to remind you all again to fill your attendance form shared to the provided link in the Zoom chat room, which will be closed in 15 minutes from now. I would like to invite Dr. Engineering Ardiano Priyono as the Deputy Vice Director of Postgraduate Program to provide the welcoming speech to Dr. Ardiono. The time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mbak Dewi. Pak Mahidin, terima kasih banyak ya atas kesediaannya hadir. Mudah-mudahan sehat selalu ini. Sudah lama nggak ketemu nih. Baik, oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to my friend, actually good friend. Actually, he have invited me actually in 2006 when I become head of Department of Electrical Engineering at that time. Associated Professor Dr. Muhammad Mahidin Ramli from University Malaysia Perlis. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Pak atas jemputan.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, yeah. Okay, I would like also to welcome to the postgraduate student of ITS and the international student who coming to this program, and also to all my staff who create this agenda today. And today's session is the workshop of researcher and research student enrichment program, or we call it R2SEP, or sometimes we call it R2SEP. It's a program with topic expectation from being a postgraduate student. The program aims to give the student the insight and knowledgeable experience from the speaker. Becoming a postgraduate student need dedication, commitment, and hard worker. It is very useful when student can hear a direct experience from our speaker. The SEP program runs through one whole semester. This semester will be had around its meetings with the variety of topic and speakers. Hopefully, the program can equip students with a comprehensive understanding of postgraduate students' life, challenges, and how to overcome them. I hope you will successful now and the near future. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Please enjoy this program.
Thank you, Dr. Ardiono, for the welcoming speech. And next, I would like to please allow me to elaborate about today's lecture. Today's lecture is about the expectation from being a postgraduate student, which will be delivered by our speaker. Please wait for a second. Today's speaker will be delivered by Professor Madya or Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Mahidin Ramli. He is from University of Malaysia Perlis, or we call it UNIMAP, and it will be conducted by Dr. Afan Hamzah as a moderator from Institut Teknologi 10 November. So let me introduce you about our moderator today. Our moderator today is Dr. Afan Hamzah, ST or Sarjana Teknologi, from Institut Teknologi 10 November. His educational background, he gets his bachelor degree in engineering from Department of Chemical Engineering from ITS, and also he got his doctoral degree in engineering as well from the Department of Chemical Engineering of ITS. So he takes a PMDSU program from the Ministry of Education and Culture of Indonesia. And then next, he is a lecturer and also a researcher from Department of Industrial Chemical Engineering, which is located in the Faculty of Vocational Studies of Institut Teknologi 10 November. His research interest is in industrial chemical engineering and also biochemistry. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Afan Hamzah, ST, as our moderator today. Dr. Afan, the time is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Dewi. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? Our Honorable Dr. R2SEP as the Deputy Director of Postgraduate Program and Academic Development of ITS. And let me introduce you our speaker today, Dr. Muhammad Mahidin Ramli. He has an educational background in Advanced Technology Institute from University of Surrey, United Kingdom, and Master in Engineering Science in Department of Microelectronics, University College Cork, Ireland, and Bachelor in Engineering in School of Microelectric Engineer, University Utara Malaysia. He has academic and professional experience as Associate Professor in Faculty of Engineering Technology, University Malaysia Perlis, and researcher with many publications and for patent filing and grants. He has a research interest in graphene synthesis, graphene oxide synthesis, synthesis graphite, polymer nanocomposite, nano device, gas sensor, and etc. Today, first of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let us express our gratitude towards Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for all blessing and opportunity that Allah gave us so we can participate in this special occasion. We would like to have a lecture about expectation from being a postgraduate student. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Muhammad Mahidin Ramli. Time is yours.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Afan, as a moderator. Can you hear me clearly? Can you see me?
Yes.
All right, good. Alhamdulillah. All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And
Waalaikumsalam.
selamat sore. Is it correct? Is it correct? Is it okay?
Selamat sore.
Okay. So thank you very much, especially to the Dr. Afan as moderator, and thank you very much to the MC, Mbak Dewi, and then a special mention to my old friend, Pak Diono. Udah lama Pak nggak ketemu ya.
Alhamdulillah sehat.
Alhamdulillah sehat. Alhamdulillah. I think last time we met was 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 years ago. It was a long time.
Yes.
And then I think at that time we invited Pak Diono to UNIMAP, and then basically Pak Diono have seen the UNIMAP, and then have seen my lab, and then I've been invited for the talk, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you very much, Pak Dewono, especially for the invitation, and then thank you very much to the organizer of this event, which is a researcher and research student enrichment program, or in short, we call it R2SEP. So thank you very much to the organizer. So before we start, I think I would like to share my screen, my presentation. So can you see the slide?
Yes, we can see.
Yes.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Assalamualaikum, especially to our participants. Selamat sore to our participants. And then I've been told that most of our participants here basically made up by masters and PhD students. And apart from that, we also have a researcher, which is the supervisors for our postgraduate students. So as been mentioned by the moderator and our MC today, my name is Muhammad Mahidin bin Ramli. I'm basically one of the associate professor from the Faculty of Electronic Engineering Technology. So basically, I'm affiliated into two departments. The first one, I'm doing my teaching in Faculty of Electronic Engineering Technology, and then I'm doing my R&D, my research in Center of Excellence Geopolymer and Green Technology. So both department is in the University Malaysia Perlis. So if some of you might not familiar with the Malaysia geography, for example, so this is our map, Malaysia, and then we have the peninsula of Malaysia here, and then we have Sabah and Sarawak, and the rest is Indonesia, as you all know. So basically, this University Malaysia Perlis, or in short, we call it UNIMAP, basically is situated in the northern part of Malaysia, which is on Perlis. So in Peninsula of Malaysia, we have, if I'm not mistaken, we have 12 states. So the most smallest state is Perlis. So this is where we have our campus, our main campus, which is UNIMAP in Perlis. So because of that state, this state is very, very small. So we can say that UNIMAP is Perlis and Perlis is UNIMAP. Because if you have a chance to be here, so you can see that most of the places in Perlis, you can see the signboard of UNIMAP. So we are jokingly said to people outside the UNIMAP, we jokingly said that Perlis is UNIMAP and UNIMAP is Perlis. So this is the chancellery. So this is where we have our chancellor, which is the Sultan of Perlis. So the good thing about and the unique thing about Malaysia, each of the state they have their own sultan. So each of the sultan for that state, basically they tend to be the chancellor. So they are not involved with the day-to-day work in terms of the administration, in terms of the management of university. Those management of the university basically fall under vice chancellor. So we, for example, we have convocation. Wisuda, is it? Is it correct? Convocation. So normally the sultan they just involved during the convocation and so on, the formal ceremony. So day-to-day management basically fall under the management of our vice chancellor. So this is where we have a vice chancellor, we have 4 deputy vice chancellors, and then all the management team are basically inside here. So this is the main gate into our campus. So regarding the Center of Excellence that where I'm working, especially on my research, because today's topic is basically 100% related to the R&D, research and development. So what we call the Center of Excellence for Geopolymer and Green Technology, so at that time, we established at 2011, at that time we call it geoconcrete. because some of the researcher that trying to establish, or some of the researcher that put their hard work to have this kind of center of excellence, most of them are in geoconcrete field of research. So at that time, 2011, they call it Geoconcrete Center of Excellence. So when throughout the time, in 2015, after a few years, there are a lot of researchers joining in inside that Center of Excellence. When we have diverse in terms of the research discipline, where we have engineering, we have materials, we have civil, and then we have the electronics, we have nanotechnology and so on. So a lot of people coming in inside that center, so they change into green technology. So basically what we are doing in our Center of Excellence here, or in short, we call it COE, Center of Excellence. So what we are doing here, basically, we are focusing on the green technology, whether that is electronic engineering, whether that is civil engineering, mechanical engineering, manufacturing engineering, but the application must be towards focusing into the green technology. So that's why we renamed our Center of Excellence, COE, from geoconcrete into geopolymer and green technology. So this is basically the objective of having our COE. As I said before, we wanted to develop a technology related. So not only engineering, because when we talk about engineering, the field, the area is not as big as technology. So basically, engineering is part of the technology. So that's why we are taking into the spirit of a bigger research area. That's why we call it a technology. So what we wanted to do, basically, we wanted to develop any technology related in terms of the innovation, in terms of the inventions that are focusing on the green technology based on the research activities, purely on the research activities. And then the second one, basically wanted to develop researchers in how they are conducting themselves towards the visibility into the international, as well as the industry, as well as the local. So the mission basically to produce the exemplary academic researcher, and then the vision basically to be the world-class COE in green technology area. Okay, so this is basically our FB page. So since 2011, we have what we call the annual conferences. Not only one conference, we have up to 7 conferences each of the year. I think most of our conferences being held in Indonesia. We like to go to Indonesia. We have a few conferences in Surabaya, in Bandung, and then in Jakarta as well. So this is our FB page. So we are quite active in terms of gathering all the researchers around the world that are having the same research area as what we want it to be, which is the green technology. So this is basically a bit of my background, as been mentioned by our moderator just now. So I did my first degree in engineering, to be precise in microelectronic engineering, graduated in 2006 locally in Malaysia. And then after that, I pursued my Master of Engineering Science, again in microelectronic design as well, from Tyndall Institute, which is under the University College Cork, Republic of Ireland. I graduated in 2007, and then went back to UNIMEP after that for 1 year. And then in 2008, I went to the United Kingdom, went to the UK, where I finished my PhD in nanotechnology from Advanced Technology Institutes from University of Surrey in 2012. So at that time, basically, I finished my PhD in, I think in November, through the end of 2012. And then after that, I take 1 month leave. And then in 2013, I start my service as a lecturer at that time in the UNIMED. And then after 2 years, promoted to the senior lecturer. And then in 2019, I get promoted into the associate professor in the end of 2019. So that is a bit of my background in terms of my education. So if I want to reflect back on my PhD time, so I would say that that is the best time in my life, basically. So I always say that to all my students, especially, and to all my friends and my colleagues, that each of us, if we manage, inshallah, if we manage to finish our PhD, each of you basically can have their own book about their PhD life. Each of them, they have their own experience that cannot be shared. I mean, you can share, but you are writing your own experience and your own book. So this is something else, you know. So that's why people said PhD is a hard time. Yes, during you are doing your master's or PhD, it is a hard time. But after you finish it, after you taste the success, and then definitely a few years after that, you will go back, you will revisit the memory of doing your PhD time. So during that time, you realize that, after that, you realize that you can write your own book regarding your own PhD time or PhD life. So I always say to my friend, I always say to my my students. So this is just like a motivation for them, you know, whenever they're going through hardship. So that is the PhD. But if your PhD time or your master time or your postgraduate time going smooth, so that is not PhD. So you have to go through the hardship, then you can have your PhD. So when you look back into your undergraduate and the postgraduate, so basically there are a big jump between the undergraduates into the postgraduate. So mostly during your undergraduate time, of course, full of classes where you have to attend, and then some of them, they have, for example, in Malaysia, they started at 8 in the morning and then they finish some of them at 6. And then some of them, they still have their lecture class during the night, 8:30 during the night until 10:30 during the night, full of classes. And then at the end of semesters or in the middle of the semester, you will have the test, you will have the exams. And then normally at the end of your 4 years or 3 years time during your undergraduate, you will have a final year project. But when you jump, when you pursue, when you go into the postgraduate, for the first semester, during the first year, some of you could have and might have a class, but not as much as during the undergraduate. Maybe 1 or 2 that been suggested by your supervisor, maybe the area that you are not covered during the undergraduate, but that area you wanted to do during your master or PhD. So you have to have a basic knowledge about that area, about that field. So you need to enroll into 1 or 2 classes, that's all. And the rest of the time during your postgraduate, you have to learn independently. Of course, you have a guidance, you have a mentorship from your supervisor, but not through 3 years, not through the 4 years, not through how many years that you have to take to complete your master or PhD. So at some point, you have to learn independently. You have to learn by yourself. So that is the difference between undergraduate and postgraduate. We used to say in Malaysia, in here, we used to say spoon feed, swap, you know. So means that all your lecturers just spoon feed you during your undergraduate. But during the postgraduate, you have to find the knowledge, you have to find the information, you have to find everything by yourself. Of course, through the guidance of your supervisor. But if we narrow down into a different type of masters, for example, we have a coursework where you have to complete 2 years of the master degree purely on the coursework. You have to attend the classes, and then you have to sit for the exam, and then the final semester you have to go through the final year project. And then some of them, they enroll into the mixed mode program, where they have to go through 2 years program. The first year they have to attend the classes and then sit for the exam, and then the second year they have to do the final year project full for 2 semesters. And then some of the masters are by full research. But what we have heard, the majority of you and the majority of our students for the master degree, they're doing full-time research. For the PhD, 100% you have to do a research base. Some of them, they have a mixed mode. For example, in the Europe universities, what I heard from the Finland, some of the universities in Finland, some of the university in France, they have a PhD in a mixed mode. But the majority of the PhD are basically by research base or research mode. So the difference between the undergraduate and the postgraduate, the undergraduate, you are student. So you call you a student. But when you pursue into the postgraduate time, you are no longer a student. You are from apprentice into the expert. So apprentice means that you are under the wings of your supervisor. You are under the mentorship of your supervisor. You are under the mentorship of your supervisor. So you become the apprentice to your supervisor. So what do you mean by that? So the apprentice means that when you become the apprentice, you are no longer to be a student where just your supervisor have to spoon feed you. So some of the time you have to give your idea to your supervisor. Some of the time you have to advise to your supervisor. And then some of the time you have to listen to your supervisor. So it become like a apprenticeship. So it become like a mentorship. And then after that, once you have finished your master's or PhD, you should become an expert in your area. You should become an expert in your field of research. So when academic community wanted to find some information about the title of your thesis, they have to go through into you. They have to go into you, and then they have to ask your opinion about the title or about the field, or about that area. Means that you become an expert in your area. And then the second difference, the second differences between the undergraduate and postgraduate, the breadth over depth, means that you learn everything. Remember that during your 4 years or 3 years you are undergraduate, you have a lot of classes, you have a lot of knowledge that you have to take into account, that you have to learn, but most of that knowledge are basically on general, on the surface. You are not going into the depth. But when it comes to the postgraduate, when it comes to the master or PhD degree, you are no longer go into the surface or on the general of the topic. You have to go down deep into that area where you have to find all the details. You have to find deep into the area or the field that you wanted to pursue for your master and degree. For the undergraduate, as I said before, you are the recipients of knowledge. But when you jump into the postgraduate, you have to analyze. You are not only receive, the knowledge at all, but at the same time, you have to give back the knowledge to your community, your academic community. But before you have to give to your academic community, you have to analyze the knowledge. For example, you get the results. For example, you get the data. For example, you come up with one graph. Okay, IV curve, for example, in electronic. So you not only receive that IV curve, but you have to analyze and you have to come out with your own analysis. So we call it the creator of knowledge. Okay, and then for the undergraduate, lastly, externally directed means that you have to rely upon your lecturer to give you the knowledge, to give you the lecture, to give you what you have to learn. But when it comes to the postgraduate, you cannot 100% rely on your supervisor, but you have to be your self-directed. You have to know what you wanted to achieve. You have to know what you wanted to learn. You have to know what kind of knowledge that you wanted to gain and wanted to direct yourself towards to. Okay, so this is what most of the people think. The reason for being postgraduate, you wanted to find a new friend. You wanted to establish the academic networking. You wanted to jump into some kind of business, for example, where you require master degree. And then some of you maybe after you finish your undergraduate, your degree, okay, so you are attracted, you have a lot of interest in your FYP project. So you wanted to pursue more. Some of them, they just wanted to improve their skills. Some of them, they wanted to go to the outside of the country. For example, to the UK, for the Japan, for example, they just wanted to find a new environment. They wanted to learn a new languages. And then some of them, they wanted to find a challenge. Some of them, they think that when they get a master, when they get the PhD, they will get more money, some of them. And then some of them, they just like the title. But most of people thinks basically, what are the reasons that you wanted to pursue for the postgraduate? Because of to be a lecturer, where your organization, for example, your institute, for example, your universities, if you wanted to be a lecturer in that institution, organization, you have to get the master. You have to get the PhD. Otherwise, they will not receive you. Otherwise, they will not admit you. Otherwise, they will not admit you into their institution or organization. And then some of them, based on the motivation from the family, from the friends, when they see their friends pursuing masters, so they feel that they wanted to pursue the masters as well. And then some of them, they wanted to find a self-satisfaction. But this is basically the primary purpose. If we look into the master degree based on the research oriented, these three must be the purpose of yours. Okay, so first of all, you have to understand. The first of all, the purpose of you are pursuing the research master by degree based on the research mode to understand and to think critically in your area. The second one, you wanted to learn how to conduct a research so that when you go into the PhD study, they will be easier for you to adapt from the master by research into the PhD study. And the third one, you wanted to affiliate with the academic community, with the academic surrounding inside your research area or research field. So these three should be the main purpose if you wanted to pursue your master degree. And then these three as well must be the primary reasons why you wanted to pursue your doctoral study. First of all, you wanted to master the specific area that you wanted to focus on. And then the second one, you wanted to make your own contribution So when you do the master degree, most of your research work be based on what being achieved by other people's work. And then you twist a bit, and then you make a modification on what they are being achieved before, other people's work being achieved before, and then you come up with your own results and data. But when it comes to the doctoral study, the PhD study, you have to come up with your own novelties. When you do the master degree, for example, when you do the final year project during your undergraduate study, for example, you know the loophole, you know the void, you know the research gap. Okay, for example, you have, so for my area, for example, a sensor, a gas sensor, for example. So when you learn the gas sensor during your FYP final year project undergraduate or during the master degrees, you know what are the problems of the gas sensor. But that problem are still there, but not being solved by other research group yet. So this is where the research gaps are. So this is where you wanted to put into your own contribution into. Okay, so this must be the primary purpose. So you wanted to contribute something in terms of the novelty, in terms of the novelties for your research area or inside your research area. And then the third one, you wanted to establish yourself as an expert. And then after maybe 10 or 15 years, hopefully you will become the leader on that research area or research field. So these three should be the primary purpose of pursuing your PhD. Of course, some of you, as I said before in the previous slides, of course, you've been forced by your family, you're being motivated by your friends, and then some of them, they're already inside the institution, university, so they got no choice. They have to pursue to the master degree and PhD and so on. But that is okay. That is your main, that is your purpose. That is okay. But when you come into the master degree time, when you come into the PhD time, this should be the primary purpose of your research. Okay, of course, when you have a big jump from the undergraduate into the postgraduate, so there are a lot of challenges that you have to encounter. So the first one is a lack of direction. So what do you mean by lack of direction? When you registered, for example, your PhD program, when you registered for the PhD program, so the first semester is time for you to do your literature review. As I said before, you wanted to know as much as possible. You wanted to gain as much as possible in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the findings, in terms of the results that you can get from other people's work. Okay, so that is literature review. So once you already know their weaknesses, their loophole, then you can find the research gap where you can make your contribution into that gap. So that must be your first year job, okay, or first semester job. But when you go into the second semester, when you go into the second year of your PhD, you still cannot establish that. So means that your research don't have a proper direction yet. You can see the direction. For example, I said before, you wanted to do the gas sensor. Okay, so gas sensor itself is quite big in terms of the topic. So you have to find what are your contribution. For example, the PhD or master, you have to find what are your contributions toward that gas sensor improvement technology. Okay, but when you come into the second, you still cannot find your contributions. So it means that you don't have a proper direction. So at the end of the day, after the fourth year of your PhD, for example, or the third year or second year of your master, for example, you can have a problem of never ending thesis. So you write down whatever you are doing, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Chapter 1, your introduction. Chapter 2, your literature review. Chapter 3, your methods. When it comes to the chapter 4, a results chapter, results and discussion chapter, you have chapter 4, and then you continue chapter 5, you continue chapter 6, continue chapter 7. So you don't have a ending to your thesis. So it means that you don't have a proper direction. So the second challenge is somehow some of students, they feel unsupported and they feel isolated. Okay, so if you feel that way, some of you may be in the first year, some of you here in our participants here, some of you may be in the third year, second year, third year, or fourth year maybe. So if you feel that you are unsupported or isolated, remember that you always have your mentor, which is your supervisor, which is your guidance, and you have your colleague. Okay, so try to find them, try to discuss with them, and then try to express what you are feeling about your research. And then the third challenges, difficulties with a supervisor. Okay, so we have to remember your supervisor also a human being. So when we deal a human being, it could be complex, it could be simple. Okay, so this is one of the challenges that you have to face when you are under your supervisor. Okay, difficulties with supervisor. So the next one, you become anxious. Am I succeed or not? Can I succeed or not? Do I think that I could be successful? Can I get my PhD or not? Can I get the results or not? Can I get the experiment set up or not? So you become anxious. So the next one, of course, the financial problem. I got a few students, in total 3 of them, halfway through their PhD, they withdraw the PhD and then somehow they go into industries to work because of the financial difficulties and so on. And then you have unexpected personal problems or life commitment. Some of them throughout their 4 years PhD time, during the second year, maybe they lost their family members and so on. So you have to adapt with that kind of challenges. And the most important point is the expectation from your supervisor and your expectation towards your supervisor. Okay, so this could be most of the important topic. So you will have a mismatch. For example, your supervisor expect you to be a very good student where you can do the research by yourself. At the same time, you are in that level where you have to struggle with the area that you wanted to pursue. Okay, so this is the most important parts when you pursue your master or PhD. So in order to tackle that problem, you have to understand the roles and responsibility of supervisors, and then you have to understand the roles and responsibility of the students. Some of the roles and responsibility can be shared together. For example, the most important thing is communication. I'm not sure about the culture in Indonesia, but the culture in Malaysia, most of students, they feel there is a big gap between students and the supervisor. Okay, some of them, they have, I don't know, they have a big gap. So when you have a big gap, you cannot communicate in a good way, in a good term with your supervisor. So during my for my experience, when I supervising my students, I always come to the lab and then try to talk to them regularly. Try to find what are their problems, just to say hi, you know. So if I'm too busy for that week, I try to text them using the WhatsApp, for example, and then I try to call them how they are doing, for example. So what I'm trying to say here that you have to communicate regularly with your supervisor, okay? And then you have to discuss the roles. You have to say, you have to talk to your supervisor, what are your expectations? And the supervisor have to give their expectations to the student as well, so the student can understand. For example, some of the students, they did their master by coursework, so they don't have experience in a research work. So when they pursue their PhD, some of the supervisor, they expect that student know how to handle the lab, know how to handle the experiment by themselves. But the gap here is, the mismatch here is that student don't have any experience with the experimental work because that student did their master in a coursework. Whereas the supervisor expect that student to perform the lab, to perform the experiment by themselves. So there is a big mismatch. So the first day or the first few weeks during after the registration, so you have to sit down with your supervisor and try to have a nice communication with them between supervisor and student, and then you have to ask what are the expectations, okay? And then they have to prepare the research plan. This is very, very, very important, okay? Everything that you wanted to do, not only in research, but everything that you wanted to do in your life, you have to have a plan. I am a good fan of planning, okay? So when I'm doing things, I have to plan ahead. If there are things that I'm not planned to do, then definitely I will not do that kind of activities. So you have to have a good research plan. Okay, so in research work, we call it a Gantt chart. So that Gantt chart have to be settled. That Gantt chart have to be prepared, at least during the first semester of your research study or research time. So you have to have a proper planning during the Gantt chart. So list down the milestone first, the deliverables, okay, and then list down the timeline, so that you know that whether you are going on that direction, going on the straight direction, going on the right direction, or going on the wrong direction. Okay, and then you have to be aware of all the services, all the resources that are available. Okay, so normally we have a graduate school. Normally we have a graduate study center, for example. So there are a lot of guidance there, guidelines there, the timeline and so on that you have to achieve. Okay. So throughout the time, some of the roles are not there forever. For example, maybe during the first year of your research, okay, so that roles fall under your supervisor. Maybe the first semester, your supervisor have to provide the journals for you. Maybe on the first semester, the first year, the supervisor need to guide you during the lab work, during the experimental work. Okay, but throughout the time, okay, for example, during the second year, during the third year, during the final year, that roles have to be reduced. At some point, go into the non-existence work. For example, maybe the third year of your PhD, your supervisor no longer needed during your experimental work. So you have to run your experimental work by yourself. So throughout the time, there are roles and responsibility that are heavily fall under supervisor, but throughout the time, there are some roles and responsibility heavily fall under the shoulder of the students. So you have to know when to pass, for supervisor, you have to know when to pass down the roles and responsibility to a student. And then some of the students, most of you are students, so you have to know at some point where to take up the responsibility from the supervisor. Okay. So how to start? So first, you know the main purpose of you pursuing your master and degree. The second one, you already know all the challenges. The third one, you know what to expect in terms of the roles and responsibility of you and your supervisor. Okay, so when it comes to the fourth, maybe topics they wanted to discuss this afternoon, this event, on how to start your master or PhD. Okay, so this is some kind of a guide on completing your research degree, whether that is a master degree or PhD degree. Okay, some of you can get this kind of a guide as your guideline. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here, this guideline maybe can be applied to you, and some of you maybe you can get maybe a bit from the guideline and then apply into your research degree time, or maybe some of you you wanted to disregard, you wanted to reject this guide, you know. Also, that it depends on you. But what I'm trying to say here, this is just a general guideline. Okay, a general guideline on how to complete your research degree. So first of all, of course, most of you here, you already passed. You already over that stage. I believe that out of 200 plus participants for today's event, some of you in that stage getting started, some of you on the project management, maybe the second year of your PhD, and then some of you are conducting your research, and then some of you on that stage, writing up stage. Okay, but the common guide, the general guide is, of course, before you start doing your master and PhD, you have to consider whether you wanted to pursue or not. Okay, of course, a different institution, they have their own admission requirement, but you have to ask yourself. I'm not sure whether we have the participant here who are undergraduate students, but I think you should take into account this kind of suggestion before you pursue your master and PhD. First of all, you have to know how long it will take. If you are pursuing mixed mode research by mixed mode, master by mixed mode, if you wanted to pursue research master by coursework, you have to know how long it will take. For example, coursework, master by coursework for 2 years, depends on universities. And then master by research, it can goes up to 4 years, 2 to 4 years, and then most of you on average 2 to 3 years. And master by mixed mode definitely become 2 years. And PhD from 1.5 years to forever. You know, some of them they take about 10 years. Some of them they take to complete their PhD, they take about 7 years, 5 years, 4 years. But on average, you should finish your PhD within 3 years to 3.5 years. Okay, I'm not putting you a pressure on you to finish your PhD, but it will take your own pace. You know, it depends on your own time, your own speed, whether you can finish within 3 years or 3.5 years. And then you have to know how much it will cost. Again, it will depends on the institution. And then you have to ask yourself, are you ready or not to pursue the PhD, to pursue your master and pursue your PhD? And then once you have take into account, once you have put into consideration all these three things that you have to consider, that you have to think about, then you can start to apply and register. So the second stage, choosing a topic, choose a supervisor. Which one first? Choose the supervisor and topic, or choose the topic and supervisor? So the answer is, ask yourself. If you have an interest in one certain topic, okay, so means that you already choose that topic, then the next thing is find a suitable supervisor that can supervise you on that topic. But if you don't have any topic, but you kind of have interest in that supervisor, so you can approach that supervisor and then you can ask that supervisor to advise you on a topic. Okay, so once you already establish that, once you already have that, then you can start to write the proposal. Okay, so as I said, you have to choose the area that you wanted to pursue. Okay, so the thing is how to choose the right title. Most of the master and PhD students, they have interest in that kind of topic based on their final year project. Because that is the only subject, that is the only time where they are being exposed into the research culture, okay, during the final project. So when they finish the final year project, when they finish their undergraduate, they graduated, so they still have a significant interest into that area, so they wanted to pursue that area, okay. So after that, as I said before, find a supervisor, and then after that, you have to know the research gap. Okay, so once you already know where to plug in into the loophole, where to contribute, then you can have a research questions. So research question, some kind of the hypothesis. So the answer for that research question from that research gap is your hypothesis. Okay, so once you already establish the hypothesis, so that will be easier for you to complete your in-depth research. Okay, so the third stage is the project management. So normally this one on the second year or on the second semester of your first year, where you have to come up with your Gantt chart. Okay. Dr. Afan, how many minutes left for me?
Maybe it's about 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
I correct Dewi, sir, Ibu Dewi.
Yeah, it's around 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, okay. I try to make it quick. I think this is only half of my overall slide. Okay. So this is the most critical part before you doing your research, where you have to come up with your milestone and deliverables. Okay. So you have to set a smaller deliverables in order to achieve towards your objective. Okay. So deliverables means that what you wanted to achieve in terms of your research. Okay, not the personal achieve, but in terms of the results, in terms of the data that you wanted to get. Okay, take for example, as I said before, the gas sensor. So for example, you wanted to fabricate a gas sensor, so that gas sensor basically wanted to detect ammonia gas. Now, your research is you wanted to choose one material, okay, a new material, and then you use that material to fabricate the sensor, and that sensor have to test into ammonia gas, whether that sensor can detect the ammonia gas or not. So that deliverables, the first deliverable for you is synthesis the new material. So the second deliverable is fabricate the sensor. And the third deliverable is test the ammonia gas, where you can get the results that you can analyze from the testing experiment. So here you have 3 deliverables. So inside those 3 deliverables, you can come up with a small deliverables. Okay, so that is how you can come up with your deliverables. So the next stage is, of course, conducting your research. And then final stage is the writing up. I tell you, believe me, this is the most difficult part of your master or PhD degree, writing up. When you do the research, when you're conducting your research, you know that you wanted to perform the experiment. So after that, you wanted to perform the second experiment. But when you start to writing it up, you can find a loophole. This one is not complete, so you cannot finish the chapter number 4. And then you try to write the chapter number 5. And then after you write the chapter number 5, you have one section that is not complete yet. So writing up is very important and the most difficult part. For me, I would suggest during the second year, start to write. Whenever you get the data, start to write your result chapter 1. Okay? So can I succeed or not? So here, I wanted to share with you the 7 keys to success. The first one, you have to be proactive. You are not basically advised to come up with what being asked by your supervisor. For example, your supervisor asks you to find information about A. And then your supervisor said, after 1 week, come again and then we will have a discussion about A, a letter A. But after 1 week, okay, when you will have a discussion with your supervisor, don't present information about A only. You have to present information about B also. Okay, so you have to be proactive. You have to do more than what being asked by your supervisor. And then the second one, be or have a positive relationship. So this is in our culture, Malaysia, Indonesia, our culture is we respect a lot our cikgu or our guru or our supervisor or our lecturer. So you have to build up a good and positive relationship. Respect him. Sometimes your supervisor is extremely busy, so you have to respect his time. Okay, it's okay, doctor, I will find you another time, for example. And then you have to establish with your academic community. The first one is your colleague. For example, your supervisor have 7 active students. So you have to get along with all 7 of them. Maybe 6 or maybe 5 of them are not doing the same research as you, but at least they can change some kind of advice. For example, the writing tips, how to write the journal, for example, how to write a report, for example. And then the fourth one, program requirement. You have to meet your master or PhD requirement. For example, in UNIMAP, you have to have, after 6 months of your PhD, you have to sit for the proposal defense, like a mini viva. And then after that, you have to go into quarterly progress report, where you have to sit with the supervisory committee. Every 4 months, you have to sit with all the supervisory committee, where you have to present your progress report. And then you have to go through the pre-viva before you can go into the final viva. And then some of the program, they have listed down a few journals in order for you to publish. For example, 1, 2 Scopus journal in order for you to graduate. And the fifth one, as I said before, Gantt chart is extremely important. You have to get the Gantt chart right. And then ethics. If you cannot get the results, then you cannot get results. Some of the students, they try to change the results. This is very, very bad. And then some of them, they try to plagiarize, means that they try to copy data, they try to copy findings, analysis from other people's work and so on. So you have to have a good ethics. And then finally, you have to remember that you have your own personal life. So you have to have a good balance between doing your PhD. When it comes to Hari Lebaran, for example, Idul Fitri, celebrate the Idul Fitri. When it comes to the birthday, for example, so you have to celebrate. And then we have a lot of students' activities, for example, sports activities, for example, communication skill activities. So you have to have a good life balance for your personal life. So these 7 keys is a common case that I wanted to share with you. If you can practice, if you can adapt and adopt these 3 keys, and inshallah you'll be succeed. Okay. I think later on I will share this my slide with participants, and this is just elaboration into for all those keys to success. So I think we'll skip that because of we have a time constraint and so on. So what I wanted to highlight here is your ethics and your integrity. This is very important. Okay. So if you have a contributor, if you have a collaborator, you have to give a proper recognition to them. If that contributor, if your collaborator helps you in terms of setting up your experimental work, whether you can put inside your journal as one of the authors, or you can include them inside the acknowledgement, for example. And then this is a big no. Plagiarism. This is a big no. And then when you're conducting your experimental work, when you're conducting your research, you have to obtain, you have to have a scientific methods to solve your problems during your experimental work. Okay. And then the final ethic is, if some of you here are doing on the biomedical, for example, biohazard, for example, you are dealing with isotope, for example, MRI, for example. So you have to seek or you have to confirm with your graduate study all the requirements before you can proceed with your research program. Okay, so at the end of the day, we have about 200 plus participants here who are, I believe, pursuing master's degree and PhD degree. So at the end of the day, at the end of your work, your PhD or master work, what you have to expect. So your supervisor expectation. So this is what you have to learn about. So this is basically from my own experiment and my own experience as a supervisor. Basically, I'm expecting the students to be independent. Of course, as I said before, first few weeks or first semester, second semester, you are not 100% independent. But throughout the time, you should be independent. And then you should have a good written work. I don't mind about the communication skills. Okay, we all know that because of the research are conducted in English, we all know that English is not our first language. Okay, so we have maybe some difficulties in explaining the work, but when it comes to the writing, so you have to have a good writing or good written work, at least when you report to your supervisor. Okay, so when you report to the supervisor, your supervisor can understand what you have been doing for the past few weeks, for the past few months. And then we basically the supervisor expect the student to seek advice. Okay, not from the supervisor, but from others. And then you have to have a regular meetings. And then you have to have an honesty, okay, when you reporting their work. I have a lot of experience with my own students that they are not telling me the truth. At the end of the day, we cannot follow the timeline given by, for example, right now, I'm conducting a research, a project from the industry. So when you work with the industry, the time is extremely important for them. So if that project being given for 2 weeks, for 2 years, so you have to complete the project within 2 years. Okay, so when you have a master or PhD students, when I ask them everything okay, yes, everything is okay, don't worry, okay, we will get you the results, and then we can have a discussion about the result and so on. But when it comes to the small deliverables deadline, we cannot meet the first deadline, we cannot meet the second deadline and the third deadline. Why? Because they said that everything's are fine. The truth is everything's are not fine. Okay, everything are not fine. They cannot get the results and so on. So at the end of the day, we have to ask the industry to give us more time so that we can deliver the deliverables. So we have to have the honesty. If you cannot get the results, just go to the supervisor and have a good discussion. All right, doctor, all right, prof, I cannot get this. I'm not sure why. I've been investigating, I've been researched through other people's work. They said this is because of this. This is because of this. So what is your suggestion? So this is how you presenting your work. And then you should be excited about their work, about your work. Okay, so the first thing first, you have to have fun doing your work. If you don't have a fun, then it's just like someone forcing you to do your work. And then I like my students to surprise me. Okay, not surprise me with a birthday cake, but that would be nice also. But I wanted them to surprise me with what they can get. For example, I asked them to get me A, but after a few weeks, they come with A, B, C, and D. Means that I wanted them to surprise me with a lot of findings and so on. As I said before, must be fun with, and then we expect basically you have to have a good respect. You have to respect your supervisor, and then your supervisor basically expect you to follow all the advice and the guideline. But if you cannot follow their advice, your supervisor's advice, as I said again, have a good communication. Go and find them and then ask them what are happening and what is not happening. All right. So apart from that, you can have what we call it added value. Should have an active, supportive, and then you have to have a freedom to make mistake so that you can learn a lot. So basically you can learn a lot more from mistakes rather than the truth. So you can have a good accessibility, can be accessed, approachable, can be relied upon, have a good inspiration, have a good communication skill, have the integrity and ethics, fairness, and a critical friend. So these are the things that you can have as a student, as an added value to your personal attributes. Okay, so postgraduate basically is a process. As I said in the beginning of my talk here, each of you, after you finish off your master or PhD, each of you can write your own chapter. Each of you can write your own books regarding your PhD time. Because of one student have their own particular experience that are not similar to other students. So this is what the most people see. After you finish off your PhD, after you finish off your master, can have a success. a big mountain as your success. But underneath the big mountain, you have a bigger mountain than that. That most of the people do not see. Your hard work, when you stay up during the night, up until 2, 3 in the morning, 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, your hard work, most of them do not see that. Discipline, disappointment, your sacrifice, your failure, persistence, okay? Doing the same thing again and again and again until you get the success, okay? So success is just like a iceberg, okay? And then some of your expectation you have to manage, okay? For example, you are graduated from undergraduate with a first class honor. So your supervisor have high expectations toward you. At some point, at some moment, you have to manage the expectation, lower down the expectation so that you can work within your means, within yourself. Okay, so you have to manage the perception and you have to manage the expectation. Okay, so this is in conclusion, what your supervisor expect you to do, and this is what you expect your supervisors to be. Okay, so if you can have this synergy, if you can have this understanding between your supervisor and yourself, okay, so inshallah you will get your master or you get your PhD. All right, I think that's all from me. Try to follow the time rules. Hopefully I won't be on time. Hopefully I'm on time. And I would like to thank again the moderator and the MC and the whole organizing committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Mahyudin. Thank you for your outstanding and interesting presentation. Now we come to the question and answer session. I think I will give the opportunity to the participant that raised his hand first to deliver the question directly.
All right.
Okay, please for Mr. Muhammad Reski Putra. Please deliver your question.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity which given to me. First of all, I want to say that it's such a great material, Mr. Muhammad. Thank you for sharing to all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to ask you about the topics. As you already explained to us, that in the starting stage, we need to decide whether we choose our topic or we choose our supervisor first.
Yes.
I want to ask you that, according to you, what is your suggestion about the right time to find a topic? As we know that in Indonesia, we have 4 semesters where each semester have several courses to complete. Do we need to complete all of those to get a proper idea about the topic or not? Please give us your point of view. And my second question is that if I discuss about my topics plan, start from my semester 1 to my chosen supervisor, is it okay according to your point of view? I think that's all. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Rizki Saputra. So the first question, of course, we have a different structure for the master degree and PhD degree in Malaysia and Indonesia. But more or less, most of my students, basically, they are attracted or they have an interest into that topic after they're doing or during they're doing the final year project. So for example, in UNIMAP, for the final year project, we have, for example, UNIMED engineering program is a 4 years program. So final year project normally on the semester 7 and semester 8, which is the final year. So for the semester 7, they will take up final year project 1, and semester number 8, which is the final semester, final year project 2. So for the final year project 1, normally they will be doing the literature review. Okay, so most of them, while they are doing that literature review, they are developing an interest into that kind of topic. So when they have the interest, so that will be easier for supervisor during the FYP project to guide that students. And then if that student interested to know further, that supervisor can take that student after they graduated from engineering program to pursue the master and degree, to master and PhD. Okay, so means that you can develop your own interest or topic during your final year project or through the subject. The thing is, when you are going through or when you are undertaking the subjects, most of the subjects are basically a fundamental subject on the surface, on general. The knowledge is on the general, not in depth. Okay, so that's why the undergraduate subject, they tend not to develop the research interest. So they just wanted to go through that subject, take that subject, and then sit for the exam. And then after the exams, they will forget everything about the subject. So when they come into the final year project 1, final year project 2, so that is when they develop the interest. Okay, so for this, I hope they answer. So for the second question, so basically it depends on that students. If you have developed an interest on that particular topics, and then you can find a suitable supervisor that have a similar background, that have a similar interest into the topic that you wanted to pursue. So it is okay for you to go to that lecturer or that supervisor and then have a good discussion with them. Most of the supervisor or most of the researcher, they have how to call it, inner knowledge or background knowledge about the research that you wanted to conduct. Of course, because most of them, they have went through the master program, they went through the PhD program, and some of them 10 years experience in research, 15 years, 20 years, or 30 years experience in research. So they know how to guide you. So it's okay for you to find them and have a good discussion, one. The second one, most of the researchers, they know how to get the funding. So this is also important. So if you do not go and find them, it will be a bit difficult for students to find fundings. But if you can have a good discussion with your future supervisor, they can find your fundings. Okay? So hope they answer, Mr. Muhammad Rizky Saputra.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we move to the next question from Mr. Mr. Doan Pangaribuan. Please deliver your question.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. So on to the question, leave this question addressed to the event organizer first. So if we miss to fill in the attendance form, does that mean that we should attend it asynchronously season and fill the attendance within the same time period? I mean, like 15 minutes in the early of the opening. That's the first question. And then the second one is, hi, that's Muhammad Madini. It is wonderful to know that you have the red line of your discipline from under until postgraduate, right? So what do you think about interdiscipline? In terms of choosing research scope or supervisor, it's kind of blue ocean to us, right? So some of us taking a brand new program here, some of us attendants here.
All right. I'm not really clear about the first question, but the second question you are asking about the interdisciplinary, is it?
Yes, correct.
Okay, my opinion about the interdisciplinary, is that what your question are?
Yes, because what we are facing here, we are facing a blue ocean because this is a brand new program in Indonesia, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong, right? We see a blue ocean, and then how we choose our research scope out of that.
Oh yeah, okay. All right. So I'm sure that students here coming from all sort of backgrounds, but I can only give my opinions on the electronic or electrical engineering background. Okay. So for example, in electronic backgrounds, there are the main components or the main research area in electronic backgrounds is the electronic devices. Okay. So that electronic devices are basically inside most of our gadgets right now. Mobile phones, laptop, your desktop, your TV, whatever it is, you just name it. All of them are having the electronic devices or electronic components inside there. So there are some point when we talk about the technology, electronic technology, for example, there is a point in future, I would predict 15 years or 20 years in future, there is a point that you are no longer can rely on the current technology. So you have to come up with a new technology to keep up with the advancement of the gadget. Okay, so at that point, 15 or 20 years in future, at that point, you have to change the materials. You have to change the process. Okay, you have to change everything in order to keep up with the advancement of the technology. So when you wanted to change the materials, when you wanted to change the process, you cannot rely on engineering only. So you have to know about physics, you have to know about chemistry, you have to know about sciences. So that's why we come up with technology in terms of, instead of we come up with engineering. Because engineering no longer will be there in 15, 20 years, I would predict. We only have a technology, which is a bigger research area. So when you have to know the physics, when you have to know the chemistry, so this is where the interdisciplinary area have to come and go into perspective. So from now on, you have to learn and have a knowledge about the physics. You have to have a knowledge about chemistry. This is, of course, my opinions. You know, when you talk to your supervisors, when you talk to your lecturers, of course, they have their own opinions, okay, and advice. But this is purely my opinion. That's why you have to have the interdisciplinary. For example, my first degree is microelectronic. My second degree S2, the master is microelectronic. But when it comes to the PhD, it's a nanotechnology. Because at that time, microelectronic engineering is still in demand. But now, microelectronic not in demand anymore. Now they jump into the nano electronic engineering. So microelectronic engineering become obsolete. So you cannot go anywhere with microelectronic. You have to learn a new thing about the nano electronic, or in a bigger area is a nanotechnology. Okay, so the nanotechnology, I can only talk about my field. The nanotechnology is where you get the material things, the materials research, the physics research, a bit of the physics, a bit of the chemistry, and then these three things incorporated into our electronic devices. For example, as I said before, the gas sensor. Okay, so that's why you have to good for you, be added value for you to have the interdisciplinary area or research or knowledge. So hope that answer. For the first question, I'm not clear about the first question. Can you repeat the first question?
The first question addressed to the event organizer actually.
Oh yeah, okay.
So let me repeat my first question. If we miss to fill in our attendance form, does that mean we have to follow the synchronized session? And then we fill in the attendance as well, like 15 minutes from the opening session. That's the first question. And then adding up to your session just now, telling me that, can I say you are saying that adapt to the current station will be powerful to in this interdiscipline? Is that so?
Sorry, adapt to what? Sorry?
Adapt to current situation.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, when you do the research, there are things that you can, as I said before, the research gap, where you wanted to contribute with your own novelties, your contribution, your original contributions. Okay. Some of the researcher, they wanted to be on the head of the technology. Some of them, they wanted to be on the front queue of the technology. Some of the researcher, they wanted to be in the middle of the technology or research knowledge or research area. Some of them, they wanted to be at the beginning. What I mean by that is some of them, they wanted to stick on the fundamental. Okay, so means that they are not really following the current technology, but they have a strong fundamentals background, and then they wanted to establish that fundamental things. And then some of them, they're not really looking into the fundamental things of the research, but they wanted to go and to be in the front queue of the technology. Okay, so it depends a lot on the researcher. All right.
Great, thanks.
All right.
Okay. We move to the next question from Mr. Leonardo Giovanni. Please deliver your question.
Okay, thank you. Good evening from the Encik Mahidin.
Yeah, good evening.
Okay, so before my question, I want to introduce myself. My name is Leonardo, and then I'm a student of the Magister Management Technology ITS under Faculty Management Industry, and also my domicile now in Penang, Upright. So it's meaning we are jiran.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I have a question about this. Because based on your slide, the writing is very important, right, for this one. And then as for information, on the master degree, we need to create and also publish a few of journal, right?
Okay.
Because of this is one of the requirement on our graduation in master degree. So maybe can you share your experience or advice how to motivate ourselves to more writing and create from the good journal? Because you know, right? To be honest, I want to tell I'm not really good in the writing, and also I think creating this journal is very different with the our reporting to leadership. Because why creating a journal or publish a journal, this is more scientific. So this is a more experience to do that, right? And also more motivation to do that. So maybe you can advise. The second question, when actually we can start the right timing? Because of unlucky, I'm not a regular student. I'm also working in here. So it's meaning I need to divide my time for this one. So maybe you can sharing your experience or maybe advice on this. Thank you.
A good time to start what? Sorry?
Good time to start to writing a journal.
Writing, okay.
Yes, correctly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Leonardo Giovanni. So the first question is regarding tips on how to motivate yourself as a student to write a good journal. Okay, how to say? Well, there are, first of all, depends a lot on your background. Some of them, they are graduated with, as I said, first class honor, with good writing skill. Some of them, they are graduating with a lower grade, but they have good writing skill. I have both students. one of my students graduated with a good grade and have a good writing skill, and one of them have a lower grade, not that good, but have a good writing skill. Okay, and I have one student graduated with a good grade, first class honor, but don't have a good writing skill. So first of all, it depends on your background. What I would suggest is, when you do the literature review, there are hundreds of journals that you have to go through. More than 100 journals, definitely. So when you read the journals, okay, similarly when you, how to say, similarly when you have a piece of paper, okay, and that paper have 10 sentences. For example, nama saya Muhammad Mahidin, and then in the end, saya berasal, for example. So you have 10 sentences. So when you read that 10 sentences every day, and then you tend to memorize, and you know how to write it down after that. So similarly to the journals, when you regularly read the journals, maybe 10 journals in one day, maybe hundreds of journals, so you can have inside yourself, in your memory, you know what are the structure, the format, the skills on how to write the journals. Okay, so later on, the second year of your master or PhD, the first year you have read thousands of journals. When it comes to the second year of your master or PhD, when you get one journal, you read it, you know this is good or bad journal. Okay, so once you have that skills, okay, means that you already know what are the skills needed to write the good journals. Okay, so first of all, I would say that read a lot of journals. Read it, thousands of journals. So at the end of the day, you know how the format, how the structure, how to continue the sentences, how to do the analysis, and so on first. So the second one, there are a lot of there are a lot of workshops that you can attend on how to write the good journals. Okay, so you can attend the workshop. You can ask your graduate school to invite someone that have published maybe hundreds of journals before with a good high H index, with good citations, thousands of citations, for example. You can invite them and to give a talk and tips or workshop on how to write a good journals. Okay, the second one. So the third one, how to be motivated. How to be motivated. So most of the students basically, when they see the graduation requirement, where you have to publish 2 Scopus journal, for example, so after that they can graduate it. I think that should be more than enough to motivate you, you know, because if you do not complete the 2 Scopus journal, for example, before graduation, so definitely you cannot be graduated. Okay, so that hopefully basically can increase your interest, maybe can motivate you to write the journals. Okay, and then some of researchers, they get motivated when people start to cite their work, when people start to download their works. Okay, some of the researchers, they get excited, they get motivated. So means that for them, there are people out there who are notice what you are doing. So means that you have done a good work, you have done a good job. Okay, so that's why people start to notice you. People start to cite your work, your journal. People start to acknowledge your work. People start to download your paper. So some of those teachers, that is their motivation. Okay, because as I said before, your main purpose to contribute to your academic community, engineering or social science or whatever it is, your main purpose you wanted to contribute into your academic communities. So when people start to notice your work, they cited your work, they download your work, means that you have contributed something to your academic community. Okay, and then I think that's all for the writing. But some of them they get money. You know, when they publish one paper, for example, they get incentive. You know, for example, in Unimap here, if you publish Q1, you will get 5,000 ringgit. If you publish Q2, you will get 4,000 ringgit. If you publish Q3 and so on, Q4 and so on, so they will have a reward. So that could be your motivation as well.
Okay, thank you for the information from Dr. Ardiuno. It also has an academic writing center.
Yes.
Every student can go there and free, and we have the same we have also one consultation. Jadi so you can every student can go to the academic writing center. Okay, I think I will read some question from the Q&A form. Just two question, maybe just a simple question. Most of the participants ask this. The first one is, do you have any life hack or some tips for the personal life balance for employee and for the researcher, and personal life between employee and researcher? So most of our student in ITS, there's some student that also an employee in a company. So do you have any tips or life hacks for them to do the research and as well as in the same time as an employee and his or her personal balance? And the second one is, do you have tips for the current conditions such as COVID-19 pandemic for research? Okay, that's the last two question for Dr. Muhammad.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mash, Dr. Afan, as a moderator. Thank you for the participants who asked the two questions there. So the first question's life hack for the employee. I think I missed that question from Mr. Leonardo just now. So of course it is hard for part-time students. So you have to have a good balance between your job and doing the research. I have 3 students who are working in industry, and at the same time they are pursuing their master and PhD. For me, I cannot push them, and then I cannot ask a lot of things from them, because we all know that they are doing, they are working, they're doing their job, at the same time they are doing a research. What I'm asking for them is, at least each month, give me a report on what they are doing. Because some of them, they are working and they are doing their PhD in their industry, in their company. They not even come to the Unimap. They not even come to my lab to do the research. They're doing the research during their working in their own company or industry. So what I'm asking them is, first, don't miss the report. Every single month, don't miss report. Okay? And then after every 4 months, we should sit down and have a good communications, interactions, and good understanding on how you wanted to go further and how are you going to analyze your results. Okay? Mostly, I will have a meeting with them during the weekend. You know, after they are working during the weekdays, of course, during the night, they have their own personal life. They have a families and so on. They have a friends and so on. So don't disturb them during the night. Okay? So the full-time student, you can disturb them. But for the part-time student, only the weekend have a meeting. Normally, Sunday morning, between 9 in Malaysia time, between 9 to 11 a.m. during the morning. Okay. And then try to have a as short discussion as we can, as long as they know their direction and as long as we know their direction is correct for their master and PhD. Okay, that's all. And then for the life hack for the full-time student, for example, to have a life balance. For me, enjoy your time. Okay, if your families, if your relative ask you, for example, in Malaysia, there are a lot of festive events. I'm sure Indonesia also have a lot
Yes.
more than Malaysia. Okay, so every time you have a festive season, festive days, for example, join. Okay, join. So when you have students' activities, playing games, badminton, football, or even electronic games, for example, just do. Okay, so as long as you know that your master and PhD on the right track, direction is correct, on the right direction, and then you have delivered all the milestones. Okay, as long as you have done that, that is the first and foremost. As long as you have done that, then you can have games and so on. And then during our time in overseas in UK, but you know in Japan, so we have our own community, a Malaysian student community or Indonesian student community. So get involved as much as you can, you know. So that is my experience in overseas. So similarly in our own country, of course we have a satuan or club. Okay, so involve as much as you can. Okay, so you have to have a good balance between your research time, research work, and your life balance or personal life. All right. So hope that answer. So the second question is, can't remember the second question. What is
About the pandemic, sir, how we do you have any tips
Oh
for us?
yeah. Okay. There are a few things that you can do during the pandemic. The research for the master and PhD, there are two types of research: simulation, modeling, or experimental work. So the simulation and modeling, whatever comes into our way, COVID or whatever it is, I'm sure that it will not affect your work, but it will heavily affect the experimental work. So what I'm doing with my students, some of the students, if they have the knowledge, if they have the ability to learn and to do the experimental work, their experimental work on the simulation work, they are most welcome. So means that one of my PhD students from Jordania. So she's basically doing experimental work, solar cell. So when it comes to the third year, COVID hit, the pandemic. So she cannot, of course, she cannot enter the lab, she cannot go into the lab and doing the experimental work and so on. So I tried to change her direction. Instead of all the results that have been done during the first and second years, so that experimental work can be validated by the simulation or modeling. Of course, at beginning, she's struggling a bit. She's really struggling with the simulation, with the software. By the end of the day, she can finish off 2 years pandemic, 2 years COVID, with I think 3 journal papers, Q2, Q3, and Q4, with the simulation works. One. And then the second one, if your student or if you are student and you are doing the experimental work. So during the pandemic, you cannot go into, of course, cannot go into the university or even your lab, but you cannot do experimental work. What I suggest, one of my students to do the literature and come out with a critical review paper. Okay, so that also can be done. And I also have 1 or 2 students who surprisingly for me, they are not a good writer. They are not a prolific writer. Their writing skill is not good, but they can come out with a good critical review paper. Okay, so I think
Okay.
that's what I can suggest. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the answer, Doctor. Finally, we come to the end of the
Yeah.
session. We would like to express our sincere appreciation to
Thank you.
Dr. Muhammad Mahyidin Ramli for the interesting topic and for all audience for your active participation. Hopefully this lecture will be beneficial for everyone. Thank you
All right.
for your attention. I give back the time to the Master of Ceremony, Ibu Dewi Sartika. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, the Associate Professor Muhammad Mahyidin, for the great presentation. I can feel how being a postgraduate student has been very stressful for some people, because perhaps in their life they do have some gaps between taking the bachelor degree and then they have to stop studying for several years and then taking again for the postgraduate program. That's quite challenging because it seems that we have to start again from zero. Am I right? Okay. Thank you very much for the inspiring lecture today, and thank you, Dr. Afan, for conducting this amazing session. Please give applause to our inspiring speaker and amazing moderator by using the Zoom action feature for today's empowering session. Thank you very much. And then, so this is the certificate for Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Mahyidin Ramli, as our gratitude for today's session. Thank you very much, Professor, for your availability today in providing the lecture session on expectation from being a postgraduate student. And then
thank you very much to the organizer as well, and Pak Riono. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the certificate from our rector. We will send it later. And then we also would like to present the certificate for our amazing moderator today, Dr. Afan Hamzah, ST. For being our moderator today. Thank you very much for your availability today in conducting the session.
Yeah, thank you very much. You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now you can see it on the poster that we are showing you right now. You can check it out on our Instagram page, paskasarjana.its. Before we end today's session, I would like to invite everyone. Oh, before that, sorry. I think we do have some of the program here. So this is like academic writing center. They do have a consultation program. You can have like one-on-one consultation, and then this is the link for registration, bit.ly/AWC one-on-one, and then you can also contact them directly through this WhatsApp. And then they do have also the Instagram here. And this is the schedule for consultation. And then for Monday to Thursday, it will be with Miss Melissa. You can go to the Global Kampung for this academic writing center. You can do online and offline as well, but with Miss Caroline, it will be only online because he currently she's in Korea, I believe. Okay, so I think that's all. So I would like to invite everyone to open their camera we will have a photo session, group photo session. Put your best smile. I will take some picture. So now it will be like 9 slides. So bear with me. I will ask you to keep smiling for 9 minutes. No, I'm kidding. So, okay, guys, open your camera. I will make a countdown. So this is the first slide. I know you don't know which one of you, which slide you will be. So keep smiling until I stop the countdown. Okay? Okay. Okay. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Next slide. Keep smiling, guys. 1, 2, 3. Next one, the third slide. Okay, I have to wait for it for a little bit. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Next one. Okay, wait. Okay, keep smiling, keep smiling. 1, 2, 3. Next one, number 5. We have only halfway there. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Nice. Next one, number 6. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. I can see someone driving. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Another one, number 8. Wait, okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Last one. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. I think everyone has everyone fill out the feedback form. It has been shared here, so please fill the feedback form. Okay, now that we have finished the group photo, I would like to remind all participants to fill in the feedback form provided in the Zoom chat room. The participant who will get the stamp for it is the one who comes on time during this event until the end, and also fill the feedback form. Finally, we have reached the end of today's session, and we sincerely apologize for any inconvenience during the session from me as the master of ceremony and also from the committees. We will see you again on the upcoming session. Once again, thank you everyone for joining the session. Thank you the speaker, the moderator for the inspiring session. Good evening, stay safe, healthy. Bye-bye. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jumpa lagi.
Mas Ikin.
Terima kasih Pak Ardi. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bu Sertika.
Thank you
Yuk,
everyone for coming
Terima
today.
kasih Pak Ardi. Insyaallah jumpa lagi.
Amin. Yuk.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Dr. Afwan, terima kasih Pak Dr. Ardiono dan seluruh tim.